We know that Rwanda is a safe country. We have helped over the time and evidence that we are building its independent judiciary, that it's a safe place for people to be returned to, and it is a deterrent. We know that when we sign agreements to return people to countries, they work. We've signed an agreement with Albania which has reduced the number of Albanians coming to this country 90%, I believe the figure is.
For the sake of facts, the Supreme Court said that Rwanda is not safe. That remains the case. I just want to pick you up on the idea of promises, if I may.
Forgive me. We are tabling before Parliament a whole host of evidence. At the time the Supreme Court ruling was looking at that evidence, which was many months ago. That's what it said, and we've done things to address that, and we believe that's completely legitimate.
So between now and then, Rwanda has become safe?
No, we've demonstrated that Rwanda is safe.
By making a law?
No, there's a whole host of evidence that will be placed before Parliament as well.
I want to go back to your promise.
This morning, the mess from the resignation of Robert Jenrick hits the airwaves, and the person wheeled out to sort out the problems is Chris Heaton Harris. So Chris Heaton Harris, who's someone I know well, is someone who's kept his head down, and he's a good man. I don't think this is his job, by the way, and I think he made a pig's ear of the interviews this morning. These interviews are not nice. He was on the BBC with Charlie State, and first of all, he was mocked on the idea that the government isn't keeping its promises. And last month, the Supreme Court ruled that the Rwanda plan was illegal because the country is not safe. And Chris Heaton Harris said, well, it is safe. We're going to present evidence to Parliament that it is safe. Not that it has become safe in the period between the court judgment and now, but that it is safe. I'm afraid he's wrong. He's wrong because until it's possible to demonstrate that the 13 refugees who were killed, 12 on the 22nd of February 2018, and then one a little bit later, until it's possible to demonstrate that that was either an accident or a problem that has been successfully cleared up, and the paperwork is there, the investigation is there in a transparent way that can be examined internationally, Rwanda is not a safe country. It doesn't matter how many times the UK government says it. It doesn't matter how many assurances the Rwandan government give. Until that little detail is demonstrably put forward to Parliament, Rwanda cannot be a safe country. Now, I have no problem with Rwanda being declared safe if that evidence is provided. So far, that evidence has not been provided. So far, every effort has been made to skirt round this issue, not only by the British Parliament, Rishi Sunak, the previous Home Secretary, but also the previous Home Secretary even denied that she knew that these deaths had taken place on BBC television. But also, I think it's important to establish that that the other aspects, which are perhaps, they are significant, but they are perhaps less significant. That is the extrajudicial killings, the abductions, the international abductions of people who don't toe the party line, who are the adversaries of the government in power in Rwanda. And that's the flip side of the coin. Added to which, I think it has to be considered that Rwanda is potentially at war with its neighbours, is involved in fighting, and if that were to break out across the country, where would the refugees be sent so that they are safe. The implication now in the new agreement is that if there are any problems, the refugees will be returned to the UK, which means they are effectively granted asylum. They wouldn't be returned to France or to whichever country where they started their journey. They would be returned to the UK. So sending somebody to Rwanda is a de facto admission of their asylum claim having been granted, and then we are spurning them and sending them to Rwanda because of the way in which they reached our shores. So in the BBC interview, it went on to say, you mentioned that that you'll be a political party that keeps its promises. Remind me what the Prime Minister's pledge was on keeping the boats. What was the time frame? Do you want me to remind you of that? And Chris Heaton Harris said, Rishi, when he came to power, said he wanted to stop the boats and we're going to do as much as we can. No, I would like the timeline reminder, if I may, because you said you were going to stick to your promises. Do you want me to tell you? Do you want to tell me, or shall I remind you? No, remind me, said Chris Heaton Harris. And the interview said, well, it was by the end of the year. This is such a nasty approach to interviewing. What we want from an interview is not to be aggressive, but to uncover new facts and to uncover the facts, rather than to play these games, these standoffs. This is a standoff interview, and it was uncomfortable watching it. Not least because I know at least one of the people involved, and I felt concerned. Chris said, well, we've tried to do that. We've tried to do things by the end of the year, and we've been frustrated by the Labour Party in Parliament and judgments in the Supreme Court, which we're now addressing. Well, I'm afraid that's a foolish answer. The answer should have been that we've gone back to the drawing board and we've rethought, and we should have been rethinking at the point when the Supreme Court got involved. We should have had a plan. The best plan available is an international conference, by the way, Chris. So the interviewer says, so the promise was by the end of the year that you would have stopped the boats. Is that what you're still saying? We're going to stop the boats, but we have had issues with the former bill's passage through Parliament, where Labour obstructed us on every opportunity, and a court judgment, which we believe we have now answered with this bill and this treaty with Rwanda. So, again, just by repeating yourself doesn't answer the sort of questions that you're being asked. There was a similarly difficult interview on Sky TV, and I think I think there's a possibility that the government may just escape collapse over this, but only just. And it's going to be with the Chris Heaton Harris is not the person to wheel out for interviews. Chris Heaton Harris is the person to solve the problem behind the scenes. And again, Number 10 Downing Street is using its forces in the wrong way. It's such a it's governed by such twits at the moment, and I don't quite understand why somebody outside the system like me can look upon it and say, this is what you should be doing, and somebody within the system is incapable of processing the information. The information is clear. There is only one route to go for the Rwanda plan to work, because putting forward a Rwanda plan which might get one plane to take off is not a solution. That's not a solution. Even if you've got 100 people in Rwanda, now that's basically one plane. Even if you've got one plane to Rwanda and one plane back of a similar number of people from Rwanda, let's say, that doesn't solve the problem, particularly when it's going to be overturned by an incoming Labour government. A Prime Minister is there to act in the interest of the country, not in the interest of getting the next general election won. That's a secondary issue. And I don't think Rwanda is in the interest of the country. I think Rishi Sunak should be acting in the interests of the world, calling an international conference, redefining the 1951 Refugee Convention, redefining the laws here nationally as well, if necessary, But it starts with the global issue. And I think a lot of countries will be very grateful for such a conference.
Robert Jenrick's not alone in being critical. We heard a similar message from the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, in the House of Commons yesterday, and there are other backbenchers as well who've signalled that they're not happy with it. In the meantime, there are also other backbenchers who feel that it doesn't go far enough. So you've got two different wings of the party not happy about it for different reasons. How concerned are you this bill just isn't going to pass?
No, the bill will pass because the Conservative Party, Parliamentary Party, wants to stop the boats. The question is, does this bill go far enough? It does, because it does make almost vanishingly small the ability for individuals to take legal action to have them removed from flights.
You say vanishingly small.
Yes,
individuals
small.
Still can challenge this in the courts then?
Yeah, because you've got to have some rights for people who might say I don't know, maybe they've been misidentified or whatever. But as I've described, you'll no longer be able to use asylum claims. You'll no longer be able to use parts of the Human Rights Act, which was used by 63% of the people who took themselves off the flights last time. A whole host of other things. And I think this is, not only is it the strongest package of measures in this space that we've ever had, but it's the right package.
So if individuals can still challenge their deportation to Rwanda in the courts, you risk having the same issue as before and this being held up by legal action,
but lots of this,
and stopping people travelling.
So if you go into the detail of the bill, it actually describes how that process would happen. And as I say, you will not be able to claim asylum. You will not be able to use elements of the Human Rights Act, which has been used before. This will be most of this will be done within the Home Office itself, and in some elements of this, there is no right to an appeal once